Hi, I'm Chuck Olinick. I'm a reenactor, and for 36 years I used to use living history in the classroom to bring the subject of history to life for my students. Well, I'm not in the classroom anymore. Instead, I'm filling my time wandering up and down the state of California, filming all sorts of stuff, getting into a bunch of different aspects of California history, and trying to do it as a living history format, but presenting it in video form. So, when I was researching some California ghost towns, and I stumbled across the story of Keysville, around Lake Isabella, a couple of my source books that I was looking at, they're giving a lot of information. They did not even mention the Keyesville Massacre that occurred April 19th, 1863. And so I thought this needed to be told, and that's why I'm going to be sharing it under California's Living History. So I hope you stick around. So I came to Keysville because of a frustrated miner named Richard M. Keyes, who had been mining the gold fields up north during the heyday of the gold rush, and he realized he wasn't getting anywhere, so he decided to go someplace else you know, to make it. And he came south and he traveled along the Kern River, and in 1853 at a place what is now known as Keys Gulch, which is now like privately owned. So his mine is there. He ended up finding gold, and this is going to start this huge influx of people. So he starts a town, Hog's Eye, and later it becomes Keysville. And like within 2 years, there's 6,000 miners working the river. And with Keysville was like the only real supply point between Visalia and Los Angeles at that point. So the place attracted a lot of attention. So you've got Keysville, and there's 6,000 miners along the Kern River Valley, and they're all frantically searching for gold. Then a buddy of Keyes, Lovely Rogers, he ends up going into the valley, and he's looking around, and he's looking for his mule, which has wandered off, and he's really frustrated, sees the animal at a distance, picks up a rock and wants to chuck the rock at the mule, and then realizes, hey, this is quartz and there's gold in it. So he's going to start his own mine, which is going to be called the Big Blue. And so now you're going to have a town grow up out of this. At first, he's going to imaginatively name it Rogerville, and then it's going to become Quartzburg, which is not to be confused with the ghost town of Quartzburg in next to Jordanitas in Mariposa County. Okay, and now that's like 1858, 1860, depending upon your source material. And of course, there's going to be another town springing up in competition to it that was built on the flats near the river. And the fact that Quartzburg was a temperance town, you got the people that are going to be moving into this other town, and it's going to be called, well, rather derisively, Whiskey Flats. And later it's going to become Kernville. So now these two towns are going to become the hub of activity as far as mining along the Kern River Valley in the 1860s, 1870s. Okay, so you got a bunch of miners along the river. Anyway, here are these miners, right? They're looking for gold, and they're trying to get rich, and For them, anybody coming into the area, somebody knew, hey, that's somebody that's going to screw up their chances to find gold, just diminishing them that much more. So they don't want outsiders. In the early 1860s, the Civil War is going on in the United States. Well, California wasn't necessarily involved directly, but troops were being contributed to both sides, and the Union built forts to basically be vigilant, because in the North, a lot of the feelings were pro-Union, and in the Central Valley and in Southern California, there were definitely those who favored the secessionists. So the Union had to remain vigilant. So forts like Fort Babbitt near Visalia, which is going to be important in this, they'll get built. At the same time, you have in 1862, 1863, the Owens Valley Indian War, where Fort Independence gets built, and not that far from present-day Manzanar, also present-day Independence, and so that was to also help out the settlers who were having problems with the Mono and the Shoshone. So there's a lot of forts being built. Indians are entering the Kern River Valley in 1862 and 1863. Apparently a lot of them, and the reason is the Great Flood of 1862 had driven away a lot of the game that sustained these people. Well, now these people are coming into the Kern River Valley because they're starving. They're looking for a way to survive. But because they are flooding in, the miners and the settlers that are, living and working in the Kern River Valley, they start freaking out. In early April of 1863, Lieutenant Colonel William Jones at Fort Babbitt received a letter from citizens of Keysville, and they were requesting military protection from Indian depredations. And he made a decision. He passed the letter along to his superiors in San Francisco and stated what actions he was going to be taking. On April 12th, 1863, Captain Moses McLaughlin left Fort Babbitt in Visalia with 42 soldiers, he and a couple of lieutenants. There was also a 12-pounder, a howitzer being taken along. 4 6-mule teams were being brought, and they were ultimately to end up April 24th around Fort Independence. But they are marching down, and they stop at Keysville. Upon Captain McLaughlin arriving in Keysville, citizens met with him, settlers met with him, and they had a list of things that had happened. They said that a man had been killed. They said that one man had 150 head of cattle that were stolen from him. Others complained that horses were stolen, that property was stolen. They painted this picture of the roads were unsafe in the area and that the army needed to do something about this. Oh, and the citizens were very eager to volunteer and help out. That means it's time to leave the site of Keysville and go over to Tilly Creek, which is where this happened. However, McLaughlin put the 35 who could not be vouched for. He put them to the sword, so they were killed with either saber or gunfire. And what ended up happening is McLaughlin later, when he was talking about the incident, when he had arrived at Fort Independence, he said that, you know, you can't have a treaty. These people would not honor it. Well, there's the story of the Keysville Massacre. Now, as to the site of the massacre, as to the village, it's underwater. It's in the lake behind me.